How did he get out here? She was so surprised to see him she almost asked the question aloud. He stopped across from their hiding place and stood staring down into the gully, shaking his head and muttering. Even at this distance she could tell his eyes were bloodshot, and she wondered if they hurt, like hers. She watched him shift his bag from one shoulder to the other and slowly walk on south, following the gully until the bushes hid him from view. Mosquitoes dotted her ankles. She was just about to scratch when something white moved out of the greenery, and Elton came into view. At least it looked like Elton's body. The face was hidden by dark goggles and a white hat. He missed their hiding place by 50 yards and disappeared in the same direction the other man had taken. Amy sat frowning and scratching. Were the men together, or was each hunting them for his own purpose? It was all very confusing. She forced herself to wait until the pursuers could get far ahead, and then she touched Axel's arm to wake him. They set off again, deeper into the brush. The way would have been hard for an experienced hiker, properly dressed and shod. The surface ranged from clay to mud to a scree of glass and plastic shards. The smallest hills were cut deep by erosion, and there were pits where landfill had settled. Thorned creeper vines with waxy green leaves grew in morbid lushness, as did a more delicate-leafed plant whose brown vines cut like wire. The children's shoes, gloves soft for indoor wear, were scuffed and cut. Thorns tore their sleeves and pants legs, and scratched hands and legs already welted from mosquito and fly bites. "How can you live out here?" Amy was trudging after Axel along a deep sand gully, batting away at gnats that swarmed around her head. "It's not like this where I live," he said. "Not like this at all. I don't know what they did here, but it must have been something terrible." "Do you think there's fewer insects out of this ditch?" "Sure, but those men can see us up there." "That's true." She smashed a mosquito on her pants leg, and blood mingled with the dust. "How long do you think it'll take us to get out of here?" "The Badlands, you mean?" "Well, to where outside is nicer." "Today and most of tomorrow. You see up there?" He pointed ahead. "Those are hills, or maybe mountains graded down. After we cross those, we should be out of this stuff." Amy peered into the distance and felt a sense of dread. It was so far. And that was the only part of the way they had to go. The sun's glare hurt her eyes, and she turned away. "Why are you looking back?" Axel said, worried. "Are you sorry we came?" She didn't answer right away. She was thinking that he didn't really know what was on the other side of the hills. He'd never been there, he was only guessing. At the speed they were going, it would take a long time. And they had no food, which meant they might die if it took too long. But if they had to go back to the city now, at least it was clean out here and the air smelled good. "No," she said. In mid-afternoon they found a puddle. The water tasted muddy, but no worse than the water Amy always drank. When they had had their fill and washed their hands and faces to ease the itch of insect bites, they sat and rested, too tired to talk. In the stillness, 2 robins came to drink and bathe with vigorous wing splashings. Avian generations had passed here without the presence of humans. The birds had forgotten old fears. A brown rabbit hopped out of the undergrowth and froze, nose twitching, to study the intruders, then hopped over for a few quick laps of water. A sparrow lit nearby, and the rabbit chased it away. Amy watched in silence, delighted by the strange creatures. "That's only the second rabbit I ever saw," Axel whispered when the rabbits left. "They're not allowed in the Greenbelt. They eat too many vegetables." "They understand the rules?" Amy asked, and Axel giggled. She'd never heard him laugh before. It was a nice, burbly sound. "It's fenced," he said, and then frowned. "I forgot about the fence." "What's a fence?" His explanation lasted through the rest period and for several miles thereafter, for everything he said was new to her and had to be explained. "How high is the fence?" Amy asked after thinking over what he'd told her. "About twice as high as a grown man." "And you get hurt if you touch it?" "Yes." "You do all that to keep out soft little rabbit animals?" He looked at her. "Yeah. It seems too much, huh? I never thought about it before. It was always called the rabbit fence. The authorities built it long ago." "How will we get past it?" she wondered. "There are gates," he said, refusing to be discouraged. "If we got this far, we can find a dumb gate." As they walked, the land around them subtly changed. Vines gave way to grasses, ailanthus and sumac to spindly pines. Without realizing it, they stopped hearing glass shards crunch beneath their feet. Insects became fewer and less pesky, and there were fewer birds. The sunset prompted a whole new series of questions from Amy. When she vaguely understood the situation, she asked, "You mean we're out here with no lights?" And Axel laughed again. "It's not funny," she said. "You're blind when there are no lights. It's very scary." "But that's underground. It never gets that dark out here. There are the stars." Twilight and the uphill slope slowed their already none too speedy progress. When Axel found a cluster of pines half buried by creepers to form a natural lean-to, he decided they would sleep there. Amy lay staring up at the vines and pine branches, finding comfort in the leafy ceiling. Something, insect or bird, was singing among the trees. Faint rustling noises came from the needles beneath her head. After a few minutes, Axel said, "I'll be right back," and sat up and crawled out. "We're going too far north," he announced when he returned. "From the position of the stars, it looks like it's June." Oh, she didn't understand a word of that, except, "That's what the computer said when we were in the medic's chamber, something about June 9th. She yawned widely. "I didn't hear that." The leaves rustled as he stretched out again. "You were still sleeping. Should we take off our sandals? I never slept with sandals on. They're shoes, and our feet will get cold." He pillowed his arms beneath his head and considered. "So I was right. The sun is setting toward the northwest, and if we... I've been gone a year." 1 minute she could hear him talking, and the next she was asleep. She wakened sometime during the night, frightened by the darkness and frightened to find another person cuddling next to her in the dark. Then she remembered. There were little spots of light way up high above the trees. She stared at them until they danced, and then her tired eyes fell shut. Birdsong wakened her. She lay listening, marveling that such little things could make such loud noises. The sky was light blue in the direction of the city. From here the tops of domes were still visible as beads of light along the horizon. A star glowed in the northeast. She was so hungry her stomach hurt. "Do you think Elton and the crazy brought food with them?" she asked Axel later, when they were walking again. "You think they know the way to your place?" "If they did, they wouldn't be dumb enough to walk." His tone suggested he was not in the best of moods this morning. Amy retreated into silence. Between them and the western horizon stretched nothing but hills, sugar pines, poverty grass, and bare patches of red clay. There were few hiding places for them or their hunters. Amy scanned the landscape for any spot that moved. None did, and she wondered if both men had given up and gone home. The sun was overhead when they found the second water hole. They were up against those flattened hills, following a wide swath of valley that curved with engineered precision. Axel began to run. She watched him stop long enough to take off his shoes before he pushed his way through the tall grass at the water's edge, splashed out into the center of the pool, and waited for her to join him. She followed hesitantly, not sure she liked the feel of wet mud between her toes. The water felt cold and funny. She'd never been in deep water before, and she found it frightening, another thing too new to be trusted without learning more from it. But the pond did dissolve the dust of walking and take the sting out of her bites and scratches. Tired of playing in it before Axel was, she waded back to shore and looked for her shoes. They weren't where she thought she'd left them. She looked around, recognized the path she had made on her way into the water, and set off in that direction. Preoccupied with keeping her eyes focused on that path, she didn't see what was hidden in the grass. The thing she fell over was large and cushioned soft, and made a sighing sound when her knees sank into it. She pulled her hands out of the marsh grass, brushed pollen from her eyes, got up awkwardly, and turned to see what had tripped her. "I'm sorry!" The words were an automatic response, an instant apology for hurting the man who lay there. And then she looked more closely. "Amy, what's wrong?" When she didn't answer, Axel called again. "What did you find?" and began to splash his way toward her.